Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to another episode of the Talk to the Fedora segment on connecttv.ca. My name is Jarrod Goldsmith from eSAX Virtual Events, and today we're going to be chatting about some hard-hitting, honest entrepreneur wisdom to grow your small business. And on today's segment, I'm very pleased to be welcoming Kamy Dhanoa. Kamy is an entrepreneur with an expertise in business development, sales, and marketing. She has over 20 years of diverse industry experience. She's led market research projects for global Fortune 500 clients, co-managed Edmonton's Innovation Research Park, the Accelerator Program. She's a former board member at ICOBC and Economic Development Officer at the World Trade Center in Edmonton. Today, she lends her expertise to new venture startups, Innovation Nation. And she's an EDI champion and goes by the hashtag Passion for the Greater Good. Kamy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Hi, Jarrod. How's it going?
Very good. Thank you. Thanks for taking the time. We're looking forward to hearing about some of the wisdom you have for startups and small business owners. So, Kamy, let's start a little bit about some of your background. Who are you, and what is the business all about, please?
Thank you so much. So again, my name is Kamy. I'm based in Ottawa. I lived in a few different Canadian cities, grew up in Montreal, lived in Edmonton, Alberta for a few years, and then of course came to Ottawa a few years back. And, fell into entrepreneurship about 7 years ago. Love it, wouldn't go back. And worked in, Jarrod, like private and public sector, but in everything that I've done, it was always a focus on business development, sales, marketing, communications, PR. That's sort of really the area that I love. Although I studied computer science, I went to University at McGill. I sort of, sit in that intersect of, innovation, technology, but then really using the business development, marketing, sales to kind of get startup growth.
Right. There's a lot of similarities, actually. I grew up in Montreal, went to McGill, and I went to Edmonton for my graduate degree at the U of A.
Get out. I didn't know this.
Yeah, we have to chat offline afterwards. So, Kamy, why did you launch PopTicker? What was your origin story for that, please?
Yeah, so I think I kind of veered off your first question. So basically, I was working on Atsaki. Atsaki is sort of my business development sort of connection platform. That's where, I meet with different startups, and usually I get involved as a co-founder in the position of Chief Business Development Officer. And at the time we were looking at a project, and of course with the pandemic, it literally kiboshed the vitality of it moving forward. So I could have, I was thinking, do I sit back and sort of, look at this, pandemic unfold here in Canada, or is this an opportunity to help out, right? So in your introduction, you talked about passion for the greater good. So I sort of thought, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to help out, use my marketing skills, and try to, expose and really get those stories out of why local matters out to the community. So it really started as organic and as grassroots as that. And then, of course, the engineering side of me, as we sort of, got this ball rolling, was, okay, so it's great in Canada and Ottawa, of course, and the global community that, this whole sentiment about local, it's come to the mainstream, it's come to the forefront, right? So I was like, okay, so how can we sort of manufacture, engineer a solution? So that whole concept of PopTicker that grew so organically, ended up having an app, that we're going to be launching this summer, and a whole sort of economic recovery campaign wrapped with that. So that's sort of how it came together.
So you were able to combine some of your previous expertise into this new initiative. That's really exciting.
I was able to leverage all the skills, going to school at McGill, studying computer science. I was able to sort of conceptualize, okay, what kind of solution are we looking at? Something tactile, of course, the marketing, right? Leveraging the social media assets, doing the interviews, of course, and sort of, I have so many other exciting things, but I'll leave it as we move along this trajectory here.
We might have to have you back for another few segments. Kamy, this is an interesting point, because of all the background experiences you've had around entrepreneurship and marketing and sales branding, would you say that it's these experiences that really help shape startups? Like, some people might be really good at XYZ, but not so much in this, that, or the other thing. How important is it to be well-rounded or really super specialized in a particular aspect of entrepreneurship. Any thoughts?
Yeah, so two things come to mind. I mean, when we're looking at startups, right? I always say, you're limited in your funding, right? So I always tell startups, try to build your internal capacity to have at least the base complementary skills to get your business, your product out there and just land a few of the initial sales, right? So that you can attract the investment. So that's number one, is who's on your core team, right? Build that internal capacity. Now, I'm not sure if you're sort of asking about the other side of things where, you're talking about as an individual, when you're sort of, studying, getting your education, trying to figure out what you want to be in life. There's some people that niche very well, and I've always wanted to be a police officer, and they go to, police college, and then they have a, 35-year career in policing. And then there's others, and of course, you've known my path has been a little bit non-linear. I'm not sure if that's what you meant, but we can certainly get into that if you'd like.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Thank you. So would you say that you had a background in entrepreneurship?
No, not at all. Didn't have a background. I was one of, those individuals that didn't really know what I wanted to do. I actually, when I was applying for university, actually, let me even go back. So check it out. This was, I think, 2 years before graduating high school. Remember, we used to sit with guidance counselors back in the day. So I'm sitting with the guidance counselor. He said, Kamy, what do you want to, be, figure out your college program. So I said, maybe a teacher or a nurse. So looking back, I kind of think about, okay, I think that's where the passion for the greater good, that sense of being able to care for others and sort of, teach and being in that kind of environment. Well, when he saw my marks, he said, well, Kamy, you're so strong in sciences and math. I suggest you go into the science program at Dawson College. So I ended up going into the health sciences. So completely went off my original path of being either a teacher or a nurse, and ended up doing health sciences. Again, got 100% in my final Cal exam, 98 in physics. I did really well. So then when it came to choosing another program in university, I was told again, Kamy, stick to the sciences and math, you're really good. So at the time, my parents, being newcomers from India, they didn't really have any, that many reference points. So I remember this, I'll never forget this. I had two older cousins, and one was a dentist, and another had studied computer science. So my mom said, okay, listen, if you don't really know what you want, apply to both those. Apply to both. I really didn't know, Jarrod. So I applied to both, got in both, and then literally just said, okay, well, computer science is new. Let's check it out. That's how I got into.
Oh, interesting. So you thought that there'd be more of an opportunity because it's a growing field, much more of a newer field?
Yeah, it was sort of an emerging, right? And of course, when I graduated, there was a dot-com bust. So it really it went from super hype and cool to a dot-com bust.
So Kamy, what challenges did you face when you first launched? Let's talk about maybe adapting, resiliency, or even work-life balance.
Yeah, I mean, it is tough. I know with the first startup that I joined was in home healthcare. I mean, I just loved it. It's this sort of poetic chaos. And I think as an entrepreneur, and you get it, it's almost like, I don't know, it's a lifestyle. I don't know if it's an addiction. I wouldn't say it's an addiction, but it's that constant stimulation. And I think that's what I enjoy is just never being bored. So, the challenges that you face as a founder is just, you're running multiple portfolios, right? You might not even be strong in, a quarter or a half of them, but you have to run them. You have zero to next resources financially and on the human resource side. So, I mean, those are some of the challenges you face. And that's just, to get onto, I call base camp of if you want to look at the Everest metaphor, but, looking at new startups and new co-founders and founders coming in, I always tell them to use that mindset of, it's win and learn, Jarrod. That's what it's all about. It's not that win or lose anymore, right? So
win and learn. That's very important. Poetic chaos. Love that. That's a great phrase. Did you have mentors when you went through this?
I've had a lot of help, and actually, this is a great segue. I'd love to do a shout out to Algonquin College. They have been such a great, multiple programs. There's the Data Analytics Center where, we were able to get our tech team going, brilliant students, and IMD program. They got the slide program, the marketing and advertising program. So, mentors in terms of, these programs are fantastic. Carleton University has been a great help. Obviously, Invest Ottawa has fantastic programming. I mean, there's just so many players in our community, as you know, that have been great. In terms of an individual mentor, I think there's a number of founders I've been able to chat with, both female founders and just a whole wide array. So it's been great.
Well, thank you. I mean, there's no doubt that launching a business takes a lot of collaboration, working with others who may or may not be in the same industry as you. How do you approach those people, Kamy? Like, would you care to share some of your favorite networking tips?
So, sorry, you're asking about how do you approach contacts that may not be in your industry?
Who you think might be beneficial to help you on your entrepreneur journey, like reaching out to people, networking. How would you explain to people who are new to the field of entrepreneurship that they have to network?
Oh yes, you know this well, because that's the core of also what you advocate for and provide. Networking is huge. I mean, it's even if you look up startups, right? I mean, there's often that adage about startups are funded not necessarily based on the product, but based on the people running them, right? So if you look at a lot of things, it all is very simple. I know we as humans we complicate things, but it's actually quite simple when you break things down. And humanity, people, that connections. I mean, it's very important to network. Get out of that sort of silo and talk to people. You never know where the next opportunity or partnership or sale is going to come from.
Yeah, we see it all the time. People who are starting up a business are so focused on the 20-hour, 100-hour work week and staying inside, just trying to get everything done. People may not realize the value of connecting and collaborating with others. And in terms of the collaboration point, you mentioned some very good resources here in Ottawa. The Algonquin Colleges, the Invest Ottawa of the world. For people who are looking for details and information, Kamy, about starting up a business, would you care to share some other resources?
Sure. In terms of, there's so many programs out there. Trying to think, there used to be Futurepreneurship. There's a Founders Institute. There's a Women's Executive Network. Again, I mentioned Invest Ottawa, Carleton, Algonquin College, of course. I'm trying to think of any more specific ones, but there's tons of books out there that are very popular amongst the startup community. I'm trying to think of some titles right now, but I'm not much of a I'm not caught up on the latest when it comes to books. But certainly, I mean, Jarrod, like as you know, there's tons of resources, and what's really nice is that so much of it is available these days. I mean, even on YouTube, you can quickly search and you get access to information from famous, founders from Silicon Valley that are talking about, strategy and how to launch, and anything as granular as, creating a pricing model based on, certain kind of, best practice, 10-factor algorithms, et cetera.
Right. And you could lead in that whatever city you're in, there are probably incubator programs, startup communities, either through the university or perhaps even funded by the government in some way, shape, or form. And it's wise to ask other people about the resources they attend. I mean, that's one of my favorite networking questions. What other events do you attend, Kamy? Oh, Jarrod, I attend these 3 events in the next few weeks. Let me look into that. And that, to me, is also an aspect of collaboration.
Yes, definitely. I think just, being amongst sort of your community is a great way to stay on top of what's happening, right?
Absolutely. Let's talk about branding, Kamy. When you were launching, how important was it your business or your personal brand? Or is there a difference between the two?
There definitely could be a difference, right? I mean, it just depends what your startup is about. So I'll give you an example. So on LinkedIn, of course, it's Kamy Dhanoa, it's myself. So I will post things, related to either various interests, when it comes to business development, obviously sales, marketing, some of the M&As, ventures, et cetera. Like I love that stuff. So you'll find some of that in there. When you're looking at Pop Ticker, it's really focused on the local level economic recovery initiative. So you'll sort of see posts there on my Pop Ticker page about some of the work that our stakeholders are doing. For example, Christopher Bloor, the amazing work that he does at Tourism Ontario, the Honorable Minister MacLeod, Minister of Tourism, and of course some of the other partners in economic development. So it is really important to startups out there to identify what's that persona, what's that business identity look like, and stay consistent to that persona so people can really figure out who you are.
The consistency is key. A lot of the times we see people starting up and 5 or 6 months later they start onto something new, or they change their focus and their brand, and it tends to devalue, at least in my opinion, the idea of where they want to go. Like, so it's hard to, it's like when you were in high school and the guidance counselor said, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, most of us are still trying to figure that out. So it's always hard when you're starting up. Where do you want to be? What do you want your business to be in 5 years? I don't know. Like, would you care to weigh in on that? Like, how does somebody know where they want to be in 5 years for business?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things is, although you want to keep a core consistent identity of your business, you have to recognize as a startup that, your product is fluid. It has to be. You're a startup, right? So you're not, like I always say, you've thrown clay into the market, now you got to shape it, right? So it's okay to sort of, move around, the initial identity, as long as it's not completely, a 180. And the other thing, if you're sort of not in the marketing and biz dev and sales side of things, I think it's so underestimated sometimes, the power of marketing. It's very powerful. And I think another thing people don't realize is that it is just as fluid. I can tell you for the assets, I've created, whether they're graphics, captions, text, probably every month and a half, I'm needing to refresh it, right? Because marketing is a mirror of what's happening in the world, and the world doesn't stop. So you have to, at the end of the day, keep resonating with, people out there, your community.
Very important, and especially using the social media to help achieve that. Let's talk about money. A lot of entrepreneurs have and always will be looking for sources of funding. Not all of us can be able to, self-fund it. Money tips as a startup or small business, Kamy.
It's hard. It's certainly an art. Again, I think I mentioned earlier is that, we can't be, how can I say, perfect or have that, intelligence in every file that we have to manage as a founder. So I think, if you don't know too much about the money side, definitely, look for help. And I think we talked about, the different programs out there, we can get more information, but money is huge. And there's definitely different ways founders have been able to access it. There's some great crowd equity platforms out there. Now, it's not as easy as it looks. You do have to have a pretty, a substantive marketing campaign to get that hype going and that amplification. But it has worked. I've seen founders raise money. There's also family and friends. A lot of that is sort of your first step in terms of acquiring your initial funds, is first going to family and friends. The equity crowdfunding. Of course, it's, getting your pitch deck and being able to go to investors, angels probably first. Micro grants, pitch competitions. You might be able to go win $25,000 somewhere, or sometimes there's prizes up to, I've seen $250K. And what else is there? There's quite a bit of different options out there.
Yeah, and a lot of people think they can self-fund by going through less expensive options, but when you're thinking about you're developing your business, you're creating your brand, it's always wise to promote local rather than going through, let's say, Amazon for some of the services or Fiverr or something like this, because you're developing more of the credibility in the community by supporting local and working with others. Um, let's talk about processes, Kamy. A lot of the times people have a great idea, they might be very talented in some form, and they think, I'm going to start a business, but I don't really know much about business. So how do people start creating processes?
Yeah, so one of the things, worked out for me is I'm naturally very sequential in my mindset and logic driven. I can even share, like, algorithm design was my favorite course in all of computer science. So the 4 years, it was about, how do you solve a problem, A to Z? There might be a multitude of, algorithms that will get you there. But for me, it was fascinating to see, okay, which one is the most intuitive path and the most efficient path. So I've always been driven towards that, right? But
it sounds like the old graphic you see all the time for entrepreneurs, here to there, and the path is winding up and down.
Yeah, it's fascinating, right? I mean, there's a number of processes that you can develop, but which one is the most logical, which one is the most efficient, which one will get you there. That's the way, I've always been interested in that line of thought, and I've always gravitate towards that. Being able to pivot and agile, because your algorithm, Z might be the path that was the most efficient and intuitive, but of course there's challenges that might come in the way, and you have to be ready for that, right? So but yeah, no, processes, right? If you need help in that, definitely a lot of resources online. YouTube, great resource, look it up, and like 10 steps to get a startup off the ground. But it really starts as simple as, okay, you have an idea, okay, get incorporated, get your domain, and even before even doing that, just talk to your potential clients first, figure out, with a simple validation, this is a cool idea, but does it work? Is there an appetite for that? Is there a consumer, need for it? So what's your value proposition? So you can do that before even having to incorporate, right? And then once you sort of validate that in a non-tech way, then you have to build your base assets, I call, right? So your base assets being, your domain, set up your social media assets, right? Get all that base infrastructure done. And then from there, you can, start building.
That's some really wise thoughts right there, Kamy. Before people spend perhaps tens of thousands of dollars marketing and getting everything up to par, even using social media for good, about doing surveys. Hey, everybody, what do you think of this? And you could do like a quick poll to see if there's an appetite for it. And like you said, go to your clients. Well, people might not have clients at the beginning. It's just family and friends for now. But it's a matter of engaging the community.
Yeah, that's why it's fascinating. I mean, being an entrepreneur is that's what it's so fascinating. It's pure chaos. It's exciting. There's so many question marks everywhere, and it's like this nonstop discovery and adventure. And I love the freedom. And this is what a startup and an entrepreneurship affords you: this freedom to create, a freedom to talk to whoever you need to talk to get the job done. Because if you've ever worked a 9-to-5, especially in public service, you know that you can only talk to the the folks that are at your classification level, etc. So you kind of break away from all of that, and I think I've always been drawn to that part of it. So right on.
Excellent. What successes you've been most proud of?
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Some of your wins that you'd like to share with us.
Some of the wins, yes, it is important to celebrate even the micro win. It is especially in this type of hard circumstance sometimes.
I mean, besides being on the Talk to the Fedora segment today.
That's a huge win. I love this. I'm gonna mark that right up there. I'm a big fan of yours, of course, as you know. And I think a big win, I mean, definitely I would say was my first startup. At the end of the day, did it come to sort of that final, what do you call that, end of the race? No, it didn't. But I don't see that as failure. For me, it was really a defining moment. When I talk about win and learn, that was definitely a defining learn moment. It was a shift in mindset where it was the first time I went off the 9-to-5 path and explored a startup, dove right in. And for the first time, it showed me that this is what I love to do. And, it was a path I wanted to get into. So for me, that's a huge win.
Lots of times we think that the concept of winning in business is selling your startup for $80 million in a few years. And to me, that speaks more of the Silicon Valley myth. Like, how realistic is that?
And Jarrod, I'm so happy you brought that up because, listen, if money made people happy, if money was the answer, you wouldn't see, some of the celeb stories, have multi-million dollars, who unfortunately, right, like have gone through so much like mental health trauma because they're not happy, right? So at the end of the day, you really want to be in this game because you love what you do. You want to grow something, whether it's a movement, you want to impact the world in some, positive way. I think if you position your mindset to sort of shift a little bit and think right about it, you won't sort of, how can I say, I don't want to say bad day because we do have bad days, right? But I think you will define success in a much healthier way.
Yeah, I think if more people were to treat their passion, their hobby, their business as a source of inspiration every day, you can't wait to wake up and start the world versus, I'm going to make $10,000 this week. That's a big change in the mind frame.
It's a big change in the mind. Obviously to be sustainable, you have to make money. Of course, but it shouldn't be the only factor that defines success for you. I don't think so. So, at the end of the day, it's about what you bring to the world, yourself enjoying the journey and challenging yourself. I think a lot of entrepreneurs are drawn to exactly that, is that challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We find a niche that we could do it better or different, or just a new way of doing things. And to me, that's the whole one of the reasons of people being an entrepreneur. Kamy, let's talk about some of the lessons that you've learned. Some people call it failures, but you called it what was your word? Win and learn.
Yeah, well, do your due diligence. I will have to say that was one of the first lessons I've learned. I remember my first startup. I got so excited because, my whole life everyone told me, Kamy, you should be an entrepreneur, but I never had a specific, tangible. I remember my best friend. She was an industrial designer, so she knew how to do AutoCAD. I was thinking, gosh, why don't you set up your own business, right? And I couldn't figure out what that was for me. So, when I had the opportunity, somebody said, hey, you're really good at marketing and sales. My brother-in-law has this idea. Can you help him, start a business? So anyways, we got into this. I did not do my due diligence. So that would be my, one, thing about lessons learned is when you get into a startup, if you're joining, a startup, whether as a co-founder, a partner, etc., make sure, because if you're going to put your effort, your time and your energy, you want to be sure that the people around you are legit, that, from a legal standpoint of view, make sure you look at the shareholders agreement, run it, take that time. I know it costs money, but do things right. The core thing should be done right.
Really important, because if something were to go sideways, besides the thousands of hours that you might have spent on it, do you want to have a possibility of being sued for some reason that might have been out of your control? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very important one, right? I think especially, when I see kids in university and they're starting startups and it's exciting and everything, but you do really have to recognize, like you said, there is a few base things you just can't skip, right? And like if it doesn't pinch you, you could get lucky, just like winning the lottery and kind of not have those issues happen to you. But it's better to be safe than sorry.
Agree, absolutely. And we also talked about do your due diligence. I would say that also has something to do with the IP. Like you said earlier, when you're starting up, okay, you could try to get all of the same social media sites and, but something that most entrepreneurs don't realize is the importance of trademarks.
Yes, that's a good one as well. So, here's a tip for you all who are watching. I think one of the great resources out there are universities. So Queen's University, I'm not sure, I was born in Kingston, so I had a connection with Kingston, but they have a great program where you could speak with their legal counsel in terms of, there's an overseeing professor, and you could get some legal work done, including trademarks, and have that facilitated through the university's business law clinic. Carleton and Ottawa, you might have a similar program, so it's worth to check out because you're, as a startup, you don't have very many funds. So at least to get that base, trademark, it's very important, because what you don't want to do, and this is huge for marketing, is spend time and effort, positioning a company name. You created a logo, you've set up all your social media sites, and you've been going, with this name, and then all of a sudden, oh shoot, I have to change my name or my logo. It's from a marketing and it's a nightmare.
I see it all the time. I hear people who are starting up a business, and because I used to work in the trademarks office, Kamy, I used to process trademarks on behalf of the Canadian government. I lasted about a year, but I learned a lot about trademarks and the value that startups and small business owners need to understand is the whole concept of IP. So I'm glad that we had this little talk about that.
Yeah, it's really important. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, think about Nike, think about Adidas, think about those like huge, brands out there. Like, can you imagine if tomorrow they said, oh shoot, we need to change our logo and name? I mean, there's millions, of dollars behind that logo, right? And so it's important to again do that diligence in the beginning.
Absolutely. Kamy, let's talk about what's next. Where are you going to be? I mean, I don't know if you're going back to school for industrial design or anything, but where do you want to be in, say, about a year from now?
Great question. So, right now my focus is on Pop Ticker, right? So here's I'm going to do a little plug here for Pop Ticker. So follow us on social media. And I'm only plugging this because it's a grassroots campaign to support our local businesses, not only here in Ottawa, but across Canada. So it's really important to follow the movement if you can. If you're on Instagram, it would just help our local businesses because for them, it's everything right now. So what I'm looking to do this summer is to basically have a big campaign, come up where local businesses can sign up for free to have their business listing on the app. We're going to be launching a digital magazine, hopefully more news to come. So there's going to be a awesome interactive, get Canada together, just celebrate Canadian brands and what it means to be Canadian.
I love it. I mean, we wish there were more people like you, Kamy, who are really in it to help the community and to help people realize their passion and dreams.
But listen, I mean, if we think of it, right? I mean, I don't know, Jarrod, if you grew up with, and this is funny, if you might remember this, but remember Hal Johnson, the Participation, right? And of course, the beloved Terry Fox, like he's my hero. He's Canada's hero. Our sports teams, our Olympians, Wayne Gretzky, like there's so much behind Canada to celebrate. And it's very much at the local level. When I spoke to Elizabeth Manley, she's talking about a local skating rink that gave her and her mom hours because, she was, I think her mom was a single mom for a while. So just stories, it starts so local, right? So I feel like, with the pandemic, we're locked down, it's just, so I wanted to create a campaign to kind of create that sense of solidarity, unity, and really celebrate what it means to be Canadian with local brands and tourism experiences.
Fantastic. Wishing you all the best of luck with that.
Thank you.
We're starting to wrap up a bit now, Kamy. So let's talk about some words of wisdom. Let's say people who are on the cusp, they're thinking of starting a business, or even those that say who've been in business for a short while. Some high-level words of wisdom.
Yeah, so, I would say is, keep pushing forward. Startup it's just, a constant, up and down. And when you get into it long enough, it becomes something that you get used to it and you expect it. And so you know when to, you celebrate those days, and then you say, okay, tomorrow's going to be a better day on the those other days. But is to really keep going, don't give up, like in terms of even if something might not work out, it's lessons learned, and you'll figure your way to the next path of where you're supposed to go. So I think in terms of words, of wisdom, for me, honestly, it's that mindset, and to me, the whole principle of win or learn, it's sort of the core. So I would say I'll leave it at that.
Right. Well, Kamy, how can someone get in contact with you, please?
Yeah, sure. They can connect with me at email, kdanoa@atsaki. So I have my, flash this up here too. So, oh, you can't. Oh, there you go.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. So atsaki.com. So, past Pop Ticker, this is sort of the business development services I provide to startups. So if you have any questions, I'm always open to helping where I can. I really do sincerely, authentically like to mentor and help and guide where I can. So reach out. You can find me on LinkedIn, which is probably the best way, actually. So on LinkedIn, you can find me under Kamy Dhanoa.
Thank you, Kamy. A few things that really stuck out was the whole idea of win and learn, poetic chaos. And I think that really sums up the idea of an entrepreneur's journey. So thank you so much. So today we were joined by Kamy Dhanoa, and she is a startup, a friend to startups, a mentor, a business leader in her own right, with the hashtag passion for the greater good. She also runs Dasky and Pop Ticker. Thank you so much for joining us, Kamy.
Thank you so much, Jarrod. Always a pleasure. And I'll see you soon at the next event.
You can count on it. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye, everybody.
Great. Thank you.